We'll go live in a second. Testing audio. We'll go live in a second. Testing audio. And what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another show of Quick Start Creative. Today, we're going to do something a little different. I want to talk to you guys about, I posted an image yesterday, and essentially it was, let's go ahead and show it. So yesterday I posted this image, right? And I said that I would do a tutorial today, but I want to do something a little different. I want to talk about deconstruction, because when I was doing this tutorial, what I realized is that, and this tutorial is from someone else, but one of the things that happens with a lot of tutorials is that they will show you how to do it and you follow along. But what happens is that you really don't understand exactly what you're doing. And today I want to kind of deconstruct some of the things that's taking place with this, because part of understanding Photoshop and part of understanding photo manipulation is really the same elements of this, right? If you walk into a basement and someone has remodeled their basement, you see the finished product and you're like, wow, I cannot believe you did that. That's what you would tell someone. But what really happened with that is that there are these building blocks that happen, right? They simply learn how to lay tile. They may have learned how to cut a, when you talk about cutting crown molding, learning how to cut crown molding and getting your miter cuts properly, putting up drywall, learning how to tape, learning how to sand, learning how to install cabinets, learning how to hold a screwdriver properly, learning how to use a drill properly, learning the different screws between metal screws and wood screws and drywall screws, all these little building blocks that come up. And what you see is a final product of a remodeled basement. But what really happened was a lot of small skills added up to the ability to create something special. And when we look at this image, that is the same thing that's happening here. And I kind of want to break this down a little bit, because it can get a little, I guess, overwhelming at times when you start to look at all of this, and you're saying, well, how do you even learn to do something like that? Well, what I'm going to try to do is kind of deconstruct some of this stuff, and then just take a look at what are we actually doing, and then how are we building this to the final product. Because I think when you pull back the curtains and you see the little small steps individually, the little small building blocks, it is not so overwhelming. And it's the part about Photoshop I'm really trying to get people to understand that it is not all all of these things, that this greatness that's taking place, it's these small little building blocks that's taking place that allows you to build what you see here. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to, let's go ahead and kind of get into this, right? So this was the final product that I was working on, but I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select all, and we're just going to start fresh, right? I'm going to start fresh, and what I'm going to do is kind of break this down one element at a time, but just so you guys can get a sense of, like, what's happening here isn't right. So there's our image. In fact, let me go ahead and crop this. Let's go ahead and get this cropped to size. Okay. And then let me pull the tiger. Because the amazing thing here is that this came down to just two images. All right. All right. So let's take this out. Okay. So this is what I started with. So I started with these two images, right? And we're just going to kind of break it down. Now, the first thing we want to talk about is the mask. And I've been telling you guys for the longest. Every time I started this, I said almost every photo manipulation starts with a mask, hue saturation, and a smart object, right? That's what we're going for. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with the most basic thing, and that is the mask. I'm going to turn off the Jaguar here. And the first thing I have to do is essentially remove mask out the television. So I'm going to go ahead and take that. I'm going to zoom in. Let's take my pen tool. All right, let me take my. Now, yesterday I did this. I took some time with it. I'm going to kind of go a little bit faster with this, so it may not be the same. But right now, I want to show you guys the elements of what we're doing. So not so much the final product, and I'm a little bit off here. So let me kind of. You can kind of add that in a little bit. So I just want to get a little, mask this up a little bit. It looks like I was off by a pixel. All right. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of going through here, kind of making sure my mask is properly done. All right. All right. All right. So kind of good enough. We're just going to take that, and I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to create the mask. And now I'm going to invert it. So now just the television is cropped out. All right. So again, one of the things that we talk about all the time is just simply masking and cropping. Now, the next one, I have my tiger, right? And what I want is this tiger sitting inside of the television, right? So we take this off. We want the tiger in the television with his head sticking out. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to get them lined up properly. And what I did was I reduced the opacity, because what I want is the ability to see how he fits inside of this television. Okay. So I'm doing that. All right. So now that I have him cropped, I can then take, it's a couple of things I can do here. Control I. All right. So I'm taking that. And so this is what I did. I have a mask on layer 1. I took that mask and pulled it up to layer 2, did an invert, and now what we have is my Jaguar sitting inside of the television. Let me bring the opacity back up. Okay. And now the thing to do, let me go ahead and disable this mask. What I'm going to do is I am going to now again, quick selection tool, and I'm going to select my Jaguar. All right. So now I'm not going to worry about this area back here, because we're going to bring that back. What I really want a good crop of, the mask of, is his head. All right. By the way, guys, so I am going live not only on my personal page, but I'm going live on the Quick Start Creative, um, the Quick Start Creative. Sorry, distracted here. I'm going live on the Quick Start Creative YouTube page, and I'm going live on the Quick Start Creative group. So, in the process of trying to build this out, I'm trying to get this brand thing going on. So I'm kind of starting from scratch here, which, if any of you know, trying to create a YouTube channel, trying to become a content creator, uh, there's a lot of work involved, and um, there's a lot of talking to yourself when you go live and no responses or anything like that. So just kind of work through it, but it's a process. So um, my goal is to see if I can get to about 150. Um, all right. So now I'm going to deselect that. Control Shift I. And oops. And we want to brush. We kind of want to brush him back in. Let's. All right. So we want to brush. We want to brush him back, and we want to bring him back. So we brought him back. Control D. Control I, and I want to kind of. me see. My brush must be humongous. All right, so we're gonna get rid of him in here. All right. All right. So make sure we got rid of him. All right. And there we go. So you can see with the mask, just that fast, we have this image going in, right? And this is pretty much, we have a good thing going here. All right. Now, what we want to do now is kind of work with the lighting in the back. So, one of the things here, when we talk about working with lighting, I kind of want to do something here. So, I'm going to go to, I'm going to here start this. Maybe look at that, doesn't look like all black. No, it's not. All right. And then we're going to go to filter. We're going to go to render, lens flare. Okay, so I'm going to create a lens flare. 105, kind of move it over to the center like that. All right. And then I'm going to Gaussian and blur it. All right. So here's another concept. All right. Blurring. Gaussian blur is one of those things that we use quite a bit. So what Gaussian blur does, it allows me to take this. So I've created this image, right? Now it's light. Is black with a white layer, but what we're going to do is we're going to change the blend mode. And again, one of these days I really have to dig down into these blend modes because they're important here. But I'm going to go down the screen. All right. And I'm going to go down the screen here. I'm going to put it about right there. All right. And then what I'm going to do is kind of take some away from it. I'm going to here. Let me take the opacity down some. Take the flow. And I just want to kind of take that because I want the light to look more shaded like that. All right. All right. All right. So I probably shouldn't have filtered it so much. But all right. So we're going to take this and we're going to then put a hue and saturation on it. Image, hue saturation, and I believe my settings for this let's see here. And all right, so we're gonna add a I don't like I'm gonna add a curves layer to the let's do this. Let's add curves. So adjustment layers. So the adjustment layers allow us to make adjustments for different images. So for example, in this case, this line, this represents what I'm doing with the darks. This represents what I'm doing with the lights. And you can see our histogram here. The histogram is telling me where all the light is. Okay. So all of this, there's hardly any hardly anything on the white side. Most of it is dark, which tells me that this is a dark image. You can see here that this is a dark image. So if I wanted to lighten this image up, I take the darks and I raise them to lighten it up, right? So if I want to darken this even more, right? Again, so this is going to darken. This is going to light. Now, typically what we'll do is we will kind of create an S curve, but what I really want to do is actually darken this. Let me take him down. And it's just an eye test, really. Okay. So it's all the matter about what does your eye say? Because what we're doing is we're saying here's the light coming from the television, but as he goes into the room, he gets darker. So that's what we're doing here. All right. And all right. So now let me see. I got my light here. I want to add now another thing about lighting. Lighting requires that we get some type of that we look at the color. I'm pointing at the screen here like you guys can see it. But if you look at my screen here, you can see in the back I have this green. I got a little blue. Let's zoom in here. All right. So I have this green. I actually want this green to be a part of the light. So in order to change color is hue and saturation. So I'm going to go image, hue and saturation. And what I want is I'm adding color. Now, when I want to colorize this, okay, so right now we have this. If we look here, we change the color, right? You can see it's changing elements of the color, but it's not really coloring anything with the photo. If we say colorize, right? So if I say colorize and then I go 182, my saturation is just how much of this color I actually get. All right. So I'm going to take I'll take the saturation to 34 and I'm going to take the lightness down to all right. So what I've done is I've taken you can kind of see what we have here. We have this green hue, and that green hue is actually coming from the plants and the background onto our tiger. Now I'm going to do a little bit of I'm going to do a little masking here because I kind of don't don't like the way that was going. So let me opacity, take the flow. And we're going to paint some of that back in, but so we're going to bring some of that. We're going to bring some of that back in. Mostly want it here. And take the opacity down. Okay. All right. So again, with just 3 layers, we only have 3 layers, and this is what we've done so far. We've used the mask, right? So we've used the mask, and that mask is how we masked out the Jaguar, is how we masked out, put a mask on the television, and it's how we combined them. So we have a mask there. We have another mask on the light. We created this light, and I'm going to go ahead and rename it light. And this is my tiger. And this is my room. Okay. So, and let me go full screen so you guys can kind of see what we're doing here. All right. So, with just a few elements, we have there's not much that we've done so far. What we've done so far is that we've taken 3 layers. We have 3 layers. We have our room, we have our tiger, we have this green light. So if we turn this on and off, you can see there's that light. All right. I add a curves adjustment layer to darken the tiger because what I want was he's light as a television, but as he moves into the room, he darkens up. Okay. So we've done that. So those are the things that we've done for our tiger. All right. All right. So let's do a couple of things to the tiger. So the other part, if we go to the image to the original, I have some lights and I have a vignette. If you look here, there's a vignette around the television. So it's a little dark around the television. It's a little haze. I got some light and I got some light there, but I got some vignette around the television. So I'm going to add in. I'm going to do a little work on the tiger here. We're going to colorize the tiger a little bit as well. All right. So colorize the tiger, and we're going to say we're going to go here. All right. Maybe if I go, let me see if I can go use saturation, put them here. And I'm going to look at the blue channel. All right. So in my blue channel, what I do, I say saturation. We're going to colorize him. So on the blue, channel, we're going to say, all right. So the blue channel, we go to above 80. The yellow channel, we're going to take to yellow channel, we're going to take the 20 with the light. And we kind of brighten them up. So we got a yellow here. So we're going to take this. Darken him down a little bit. And so we got the more yellow of the tiger kind of popping out at us. All right. All right. So now we're going to add a brightness. Let me see. Always brightness and contrast. We're just going to apply it to our tiger. And what we're going to do is take the contrast. I kind of like that. All right. All right. So we have our contrast. Now you can see, again, let's take a look at everything that I've done so far. All right. Let's group these. Here's my tiger. Okay. So we have the layer for the room, right? We really didn't do anything with the room. I didn't touch the room. I kept the room just as it is. The tiger, we've done some work with the tiger. We put a mask on the tiger. We put a hue and saturation and a brightness contrast on the tiger, because what we wanted was to get the tiger to be more, you know, yellowish. And we needed those shadow effects. We needed him to lighten at the end. I still don't like the way this. I may have to blend this a little bit more. There's a way I can do that. Let me see if I take the lightness. Okay. So you can see if I take this and I just feather that. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And then I'm going to take it opacity down just a little bit. All right. And I may come in and hide a little more. Brush in, take the opacity down, take the flow down. Don't do that much. All right. Yeah, just soften the edges up a little bit. It looks kind of harsh around here. May get some more coming down here. All right. All right. But my vignette should take care of some of this. Okay. So with the vignette, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I am going to go ahead, add a layer. All right. And come here with the black brush, start painting. And I'm going to paint in this vignette. And let me get my pen. All right. All right. So what I'm doing is painting in a vignette. We'll take the opacity down a little bit, take the flow down. All right. Okay. So we have our vignette in, and if we take a look at it, it's a subtle. I'll take the opacity down a little bit. All right. So again, nothing, we really haven't done much. Now, the last thing we want to do is a couple of things we want to do. Select that. All right. So let's point out a few things here. When it comes to photo manipulation, one of the things we want to look at again is that we can see that we're not doing a lot here. It is a lot of tiny little adjustments, curves and saturations. That's where the curves, hue, and saturation, that's where you get the bulk of your work at. Your masking kind of sets the stage for everything. So if you think of it as a play stage, right? Um, as a stage, you get all of the pieces. If I'm at a theater, I get all of my pieces. I put all the pieces in the right place, but it doesn't really come together until you do the lighting. All right. So, and that's all we're doing here because the lighting, the colors, that's really what's happening here. So if you think about everything with photo manipulation, it really is about the lighting, about where everything goes. And so that's what I'm driving home here today is that nothing I've done here, I would teach you this in the first 2 weeks of a Photoshop class, right? The things that we've learned here, hue and saturation, mask, curves, and the vignetting and painting with a brush. All right. That's really all that happened here. And so now we got one more thing because we got a couple of things. The shadow. Now our tiger is coming through this here. He's going to cast a shadow on this floor. All right. So again, so we want to cast that shadow. We're going to go back to Gaussian blur, right? I'm simply going to create a layer. I'm going to take my brush, 0% hardness. I'm going to take my brush and I'm simply going to, oh, my brush is here. That. Okay. Now, it doesn't look like anything right now, does it? It just looks like a blob on the floor, but let's work with it. If I do Control T to transform, I'm going to stretch it, make it a little narrow. I'm going to put it right here. All right. So we made it a little narrow. Now, this shadow, if we look here, if it's going to be a shadow, this shadow is going to come up and up onto this shelf here, right? Well, that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to the warp tool. Now, what the warp tool means that, and if I come to the grid, we look at this grid, what we can do with this warp tool is that we can move it. We can move this any way we want. I want to work. I kind of want to work right here. So I want to bend you up. All right. Let's get it over here. All right. So we want to get that. We kind of want to get our shadow. We get our shadow up on. We want to get our shadow kind of up on the wall there. All right. All right. Now, it doesn't look good now, but we're going to go with filter, Gaussian blur. And we see how much of a shadow does he cast. And we may make it a little bit smaller. All right. All right. But we now have him casting a shadow on the floor. All right. Brilliant. Okay. All right. Still going strong here. Let's talk about tonight's sponsor. All right. So tonight's sponsor is, let me close this here. Get that. Tonight's sponsor is Lemonade by the Chicago Bears. Of course, it's not Chicago Bears thing. Now, so I'm about 90% through this, and then we're 43 minutes in. And but I want to talk about the approach to something like this. And even something like, let's go to something a little different. Let's flip the script here real quick. We're going to kind of all right. I want to flip the script here really quick just so we can get some concepts, right? I want to teach you guys the concepts. I have this camera. I have this train. I'm going to bring it over here. What I want is for this train, these tracks to go through this camera. All right. So the main concept of it here again is, let's talk about the very first tutorial that I posted on YouTube. Okay. And that was about the marquee tool. And the marquee tool is about selection. So what I want to do is kind of zoom in here. I want to keep this and I want to make a selection here. And this one of the first things I taught was how to use this marquee tool. All right. We're going to create a new layer. Background is black. And I'm going to hit Alt backspace to fill with black. Control D. And now I am going to take this train track and I am going to alt clip it into our image. All right. All right. So we have our image in our train track. And now what I want to do is, but I want it to come all the way out, right? So I am going to now control J. All right. And I want this right here. All right, I'm gonna go Control J, drag it down. All right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my marquee tool. All right. I have my selection and then I'm going to mask. All right. So we have that. And now I'm going to then transform. I want to move it down. And then I'm going to take this here and I want to size it up until boom. Okay. And the other thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna crop that out of it. Okay. All right. So basically what I did was I just simply cropped this I did a clipping mask. I clipped this photo because if we take a look at what I did here, let me go to disable mask. I took this image, right, and I cropped just the railroad out. I put that in. I cropped this image out because all it is was just a black image, and I took that same image, and now it looks like this train track is going through this, and I could probably, what I may want to do, let me get my brush tool. I may want to brush these rails back in. Yeah, I do. I want to brush the rails back in. I think that helps. Mm-hmm. All right. If I move it down and then kind of size it. All right. All right. So that helps. Okay. All right. So again, really, really basic stuff that we're doing here. But let's get back to the Jaguar. Okay. And when we're talking about the Jaguar, again, we really did some basic items here. We did our mask, we did hue and saturation, we did a curves. That's pretty much it. Now, we did create a shadow here, and we used Gaussian blur. We created this light here. We used Gaussian blur. And you can see of the hundreds and hundreds of things that Photoshop can do, we're we're really only using a few tools. And I think that's the key, that's the message that I would like to send about learning Photoshop is that yes, there are a lot of tools in Photoshop. It can do a lot, but you can do so much learning so few things, right? So that's what I want to encourage you guys to do. And this is what I'm trying to teach. I'm trying to teach people who have no clue about Photoshop to understand that you can get started quickly. I think I was talking to Dale, there's a post that I have. If you guys search it on my line, I talked about the 20-hour rule, the 20-hour learning curve, that 20 hours to become good enough. And we defined good enough as, hey, you're good enough to correct yourself. That's what good enough means. It means that you can look at this and kind of see, oh, okay, I see some hues, I see some colors. That's what we're doing with this. And so I'm encouraging guys to kind of do this. Now let's finish up. We have some lights here. We need to finish up. And again, because like a stage, everything is about lighting. Let's some lighting here. So I'm going to do double, come here, Control Shift I, Control Shift I, and we're going to take white. And this is going to be interesting till you see how I created this light here. You're going to see that we didn't really do much to create that light. We took some white, right? We took some white, and as usual, Gaussian blur. Take blur, Gaussian blur, and we just blurred it out, right? All right. Control D, Control T, and we can stretch it out. Okay, so we stretched it out a little bit, and then we just took a. Let me go big on this so you guys can see this. Then we took a brush, eraser, soft brush. Oh well, 100% opacity, maybe 72. And white. And now I'm going to take the opacity down, take the flow. All right. Go back up with my opacity, kind of come down here. All right. Take the opacity down again. All right. All right. All right. So that's how we got the light. And I want to take a little bit off of my tiger because I like. Let's get the tiger. Let's get that tiger. All right. And finally, we just duplicated it, Control J, and then moved it under the tiger, Control T. And I'm going to take the opacity down a little bit. All right. And now I'm going to add a, let's see. Oh, I had a greenish kind of look. Let's see. Let's work with the light here. So we go image, hue saturation. Again, we want to colorize it. We got to see what kind of color. And we may want to, let me see, what was the hue saturation of the first light? The hue saturation on the first light was 182.34. Here we go. 182. $34. Saturation. Colorize. 182. All right. Okay. So that's it. Not that many layers, is it? And if we wanted to make the tiger, let's take the opacity down just a little bit. Just a little bit. All right. And we come down here. I think I have the opacity down just a little bit. Okay. All right. Well, with a little work, 1 hour of talking, drinking, trying to go a little bit slower because trying to and let's do something. Let me open up something because really want to talk about this hue and saturation. I've talked about it in a let me see. Let's see what's a really good image. Okay, here we go. All right. And this is really going to go into some really basic things here because when you understand hue and saturation, you understand a lot when it comes to colorizing in Photoshop. Let's go to hue and saturation. Okay, so I've added a hue and saturation layer here, and I really want it. I really want it to stand out. All right. Okay, here we go. So it's out a little bit more so you guys can see it. All right. So the hue and saturation, what this allows me to do is that it allows me to change the colors in an image. So if I take the hue is the color, right? As I move this, you're going to see colors inside of this object are going to change. All right. So colors are changing. All right. That's 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 the bulk of hue and saturation. Now, what I can do is I can target colors. So if I come down here and I say the yellows, and you can see this range of yellow that is selecting. So you can change the range of yellows if you want to tighten it up. But if I say just the yellows, now I change my hue. You can see only the yellows. Only the yellows are changing. If I come in here to cyan, cyan is going to be kind of like this bluish color here. But you can see, but again, we can tighten up what cyan is by just all right. And then we can take the reds. All right. Now, with this one layer here, I've changed this image from this to this. All right. So that's what hue saturation is. Now, the difference is that when I say colorize, okay, colorize colors the layer. All right. And now it's changing. If I say saturate, all right. So that's changing the layers. And maybe the only way to get out of this is overlay, maybe screen, lighten, multiply, darken. I'd have to use a blend mode to kind of like reduce some of this, but colorizing is colorizing the whole layer. Whereas when I don't select colorize, I'm targeting specific areas inside of this color. So it's one of those things that if I have an individual, and I wish I had a guy with a red shirt. Let me do this. All right. And let me see. Okay. And this is going to be my last thing for tonight. I just kind of want to show you guys something. So here's a guy with a red shirt. All right. And I'm working with a client and they say, well, you know what? I like the image. I just don't like his shirt. So how do we fix this? Well, I go to hue and saturation and I say, well, what we can do is we can just say, take the red and change the color to something that you like. So maybe that blue. Now you can kind of see because here's one of the things. Red is a kind of skin tone color, right? So we can see when we did red, we took his color. But the one thing about the hue and saturation is that I can now go in and say, well, I don't want the skin to change. So I have this little mask here, so I can just come in and go here. Where's my opacity flow? Oh, I'm using erasure too. I need to use a brush. And I can kind of brush his skin tone back in because he looks crazy with that. So I've changed the shirt, but then I get his skin tones back in. And now he doesn't look that great. So that's the thing. And see, Lena, and here I am strictly the opposite. I know how to work with templates in Illustrator, but I don't know how to really manipulate um I don't know how to manipulate Illustrator like I can Photoshop. All right. But this particular hue and saturation is one of those fundamental tools that you just learn. And again, you can see that this image, if I were doing this for a client, I mean, I would be really, really specific. But in this case, you can see it was just, I had the person, didn't like the red shirt, changed the color of the red shirt, mask out whatever the adjustment layer did to the skin, and now we're back to normal. And then again, we can just kind of work with the rest of it. So you know, you can see you can do all type of things now. I can change the saturation. So maybe I don't want that shirt saturated so much. And then we can do some other stuff here to fix it up. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys a really quick take on the I'm gonna take this. The other thing we used was the mask, right? So I said, mm, I don't want these glasses. Okay. Now, here's a tip. I don't want the glasses. I could mask this out, but if I were to kind of mask this out, right? And I put a mask in, well, I got a blank space there. I don't want that. Here's the beauty of Photoshop. If I say, yeah, I don't want that, what I can simply do is go to I can select this object, right? And I can just tell Photoshop content aware fill. Hit apply, hit OK. That image it's going, and I can fix it up, but it's just a matter of I take this, move it over here. So we can work with it. Other things we can do to fix this, right? But I just want to, again, the idea of it, guys, is that we are using tools that are very straightforward with the thousands of tools in Photoshop, hue saturation, mask, maybe some content aware, a curve layer. That is how we got this. Okay. All right. So I'm gone. I'm out. I'm going to go drink some water. So great show. Done.